Hi everyone, welcome back to another podcast style video.
Yay!
Number three, in fact. If you haven't checked out the previous videos on the Appalachian Trail and on desert soda, go check those out. But today we will be talking about another interesting topic that Jeff knows quite a bit about, and that is VHF contests.
Yes.
Let's get into some questions. Can you give us sort of a why or how you got into VHF contests and just some basic definitions that are helpful to know for someone who is new to VHF contests?
Yeah, so I discovered them. I was up doing a soda activation and I did HF, then I got on 2 meters and there were a lot of people on for some reason and they all wanted to know my grid square, which was unusual because usually the chasers just want to say hi and give you a signal report. And so someone eventually told me what was going on, and when I got home, I looked into it a bit more and uh, said, "Oh, that sounds interesting." And it was kind of fun getting a lot of contacts on VHF. I was up on the summit, so um, the next contest, the next year, I don't remember. I packed up some radios and antennas and headed up the hill, and spent a couple hours. And since then, I've just been acquiring more and more radios and transverters and antennas and whatnot, and it's quite the production now here. So, um, yeah.
So, in terms of some definitions, some common terms that come up while doing contests, you mentioned grid square. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what that means?
Yeah, so the let me try that. The grid squares are 2 degrees by 1 degrees of latitude and longitude. Sometimes you see them called the Maidenhead grid square, and the entire world is overlaid. So every square has a unique identifier, and they're broken down. There's big squares that are 2 letters. So here in San Jose, we're in Charlie Mike, which also covers a lot of Northern California and extends out into the Pacific Ocean. And inside that, it's broken into I believe it's a 10 by 10 grid, yeah, of squares. So here, our apartment here is Charlie Mike 97. San Francisco is the next grid square over. It's Charlie Mike 87. And like the place I like to go is Charlie Mike 88. And um, the letters, well, I forget. You can look up which way they increase um, as you go around the world. Um, what else? In VHF land, you tend to use transverters a lot, and that's just a box. You'll transmit from your big rig, like your HF rig, on an HF band, and that'll go into the transverter, and at the output of the transverter will come a VHF signal or higher. So you might transmit on 10 meters, 28 megahertz, and at the output of the transverter will be 432 megahertz, so you'll be on the 70 centimeter band. So that's the most common way to get on the higher bands, and I think it's the only way to get on the microwave and higher bands.
I'm just taking a step back for people who are kind of new to radio. Can you explain a little bit about VHF, what that means in terms of radio, as well as the bands that are covered within VHF?
Yeah, so the broadest definition, well, how should I put this? The the lowest frequency that could be considered VHF would be 30 megahertz. If you've ever seen those spectrum charts, HF is high frequency, goes from 3 to 30, and VHF is the next block, goes from 30 megahertz to 300 megahertz, and then UHF is 300 to 3000, and then there's it's either SHF or EHF, I forget, comes next, and then the other one, and it goes up and up. So in ham radio terms, VHF generally starts at 50 megahertz since that's the lowest band that we have in the VHF spectrum. So in general, VHF contacts are going to be line of sight. Um, and radio's line of sight is generally farther than your visual line of sight. Some of the lower bands, particularly 6 meters, you can get tropo openings and sporadic E and stuff like that, which allows you to make um, contacts across the country, across the ocean, which is really cool when it happens because normally 6 meters, it's a local band. You can only work people who you can see, and then it'll open up, and all of a sudden, I was on a summit this summer, and there was an opening, and I was working people in Colorado and Wyoming and Arizona and stuff, like really far away, and that was just on CW and sideband, and I think FT8, FT4 will get you even farther for a given opening. Um, 2 meters, I'm sure every ham is familiar with. That's usually the first radio people buy is a HT that covers 2 meters. And then, as frequency go up, wavelength gets shorter, and um, generally you get shorter distances, but at the same time, you can get a lot more antenna gain by the shorter wavelength, so that can compensate for the tendency to not go as far.
So the next set of questions would be about getting started. So how does one get started in thinking about contesting? Do they need to have special equipment? What can they do it from their house? Can they do it from anywhere? Or is it?
The answer to all those is yes. Um, you don't need any special equipment. Whatever radios that cover VHF will be fine. You can do it from your house, but my guess is a lot of people don't live in excellent VHF locations. For VHF, you really want to be up high. And so if you have the means to install a big tower, that can do it, or you can load into a car or put your stuff in a backpack and drive or hike up to the top of a mountain or the top of a hill or whatever, and that will get you a lot of height really easily. If you're just getting started, I recommend just take your HT and go up to your favorite hill or a mountain and get on the air. The calling frequencies are going to be pretty busy in contest weekends, so just wait for someone to call CQ or throw out your call, and you'll likely get a bunch of people. Um, Definitely a lot more activity if you're near a city or near a population center. So if you're in the middle of nowhere, good luck. Might pick a hill that can see a nearby city and get a few more contacts. But yeah, you can have a lot of fun FM only with just HTs. And, if I'm pressed for time, that's what I'll do. Just bring an HT or two up a hill and play radio for an hour or two.
Yeah, and there's, a variety of, I guess, peaks that you can go to and not necessarily have to hike. There's ones that you can drive up, and so
Yeah, you just gotta decide
find
what
which
you're
one works for you.
yeah decide what you're willing to do that day and how much stuff you want to carry. If you don't want to hike up, then just pick a summit with a road or pick a ridge line or whatever.
So the next question is about how you enroll in the contest and the categories of the contest. So I know that you enroll as a single operator portable.
Hmm.
Can you explain a little bit about what that means, and then maybe a little bit about the other categories?
Yeah, so contests divide you up whether you're single operator or multi-operator, and by power level and stuff. So the VHF contest has a lot of categories and subcategories. So the most common is single operator low power, and that's a home station running 100 watts. I like to do single operator portable, which means you can't use permanent antennas, and you're limited to 10 watts. And I think it's the best for my style right now. But there's also FM only categories, so that limits you to, I forget which bands, and only FM mode. And then there's also I forget what it's called, 3 band or something like that, which limits you to 6 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters, but any mode. So that one is good if you got something like a 817 or a 705 or one of those radios that covers HF and the first couple of VHF bands. you can put that on the air and only compete against people in similar situation. The one unique thing about VHF contests is they have what's called a rover, and they're just stations that move between grid squares while during the contest. So um, sometimes I think, well, in the Bay Area here in California, there's plenty of hills, so you can pick hills in different squares to drive up and set up. I think in the Midwest, you just pick somewhere on the side of the road that's convenient and put up a tower. Or you have the antennas mounted on your car, or whatever. But there's some pretty intense rover setups I've seen.
Yeah, and especially here, there's a couple popular rovers that, come out to all the contests that we keep hearing um,
Yeah,
quite multiple times during the same, time period because they're just moving around. And
the Stanford station the past year or two has had a rover in the VHF, so work them a bunch. And I can't I don't work with a whole lot of rovers here. There's, I guess, enough fixed stations, or nobody wants to go roving in Northern California. But um, certain regions, I know there's a lot of rovers. I think flatter, Midwest, where there's no big hills to climb up. The
yeah,
rovers make it more fun for everyone.
do you have any advice or tips for people wanting to get into contests? Like, I feel like, when you hear the word contest, it can be a little scary because you know that people are competing. And, what's your advice for someone who wants to break into it but is a little bit nervous about the environment?
Yeah, VHF contests are pretty laid back. It's not uncommon to hear two people make a contact and then just start chatting for 5 minutes, and it's kind of annoying when they do it on the calling frequency. But you know, sometimes either people make contact, oh, go up 5, I'll meet you there, and if you follow them up, you'll hear they'll be chatting for 5 or 10 minutes, just catching up. And I mean, I've done that with people who I work frequently and um, don't talk too much except in the contest. So they're pretty laid back. Don't be afraid to just jump in. It's the big stations want to work you just as much as you want to work them. It's more points for them. So um, once you get a taste of it, you'll get addicted, and you'll start thinking, oh, that's this year I just had my HT. Maybe next year I'll build a J pole and put that up when I get up to the top of the hill, and or I'll get a Yagi, and oh, how can I, I've got 2 meters and 70 centimeters. How can I add 6 meters? How can I add the 220 band? How can I get on 1296? And um, you know, in a year or two, you'll look back and you'll just have a room full of VHF stuff and wonder where it all came from.
Yeah, I know that your setup tends to get more complex every year. Do you have anything that you're wanting to add for your next contest that you don't have?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing right now is I think I got the radio and transverter situation pretty well worked out. But like for Yagis, I have one for 220, and then it's from Arrow, and I have another, the satellite Arrow. And there's nothing wrong with it, but the elements are, you can only have one horizontal at a time, either 2 meters or 70 centimeters. So I think I want to get rid of that and get two individual ones, so I can just have three Yagis on a pole, all horizontal, all pointed the same way. So when I want to, I can work someone on 2 meters, then go up to the next band, and the antenna's already pointed the right direction. All I got to do is, move a cable around to the right transverter. Um, Also, got to figure out a way to put multiple J poles, or vertical wires on a pole, so I can, for FM for each band, can have a better antenna. And I wouldn't mind having a directional antenna for 6 meters. Right now, I just got a wire. So,
A lot of projects in your future, I see.
I just need a 3D printer or a mechanical engineer or whatever to design stuff for me, or tell me why my designs aren't going to work. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you want to collaborate with Jeff, Send us a message.
I have some ideas.
Any last words before we close out the episode?
Yeah, just get out, have some fun, even if it's just, from your yard. The people on the hills will be able to work you, and you can make a couple contacts and see how far you can go. You'd be surprised how far your 2 meter FM signal will go when you're up on a hill. It's a lot farther than you'd expect.
Well, thank you all for joining in again on our podcast style episode on VHF contests. And like always, if you have any, comments or questions, feel free to write them in the comment section of this video. And if you have any suggestions on future videos as well. But for now, we are wishing you all a good day, night, wherever you are across the world. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
73.
73. Bye.